Blackjack Mongo is an artist, producer and instrumentalist, and he got a head start at church when he was only 8 years old. He was then bitten by the music bug because the garage was stuffed with jazz LPs and smooth 45 records. He started learning how to make music at the age of 15. He now has an 8-track EP titled Adventures of Mongo, which means to give insight into the significance of the lessons we learn through our experiences. He joined us now in studio to tell us more about his new EP. Very good morning to you, Blackjack. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure, man. I mentioned that you started your musical career back in church. Just take us through your musical journey from then till now.
Well, most of it, I think, just to cut the story short, it was more of learning the music, learning live music at a young age, and pretty much transforming myself to an analog artist to a digital artist. That's when learning production came in, and thankfully my mom was able to afford us a computer at the time, and I had to share it with my brother. But yeah, I think he also had a very huge influence in terms of my music. He was the one that influenced me into actually getting into production at an early age, just to keep me off the streets.
He's also a musician.
Yes, he's also a producer, but he was more of like an engineer. So then he taught me how to compose, and then he would also teach me how to mix and master my own music. So from there, it just progressed to me trying to be a superstar, I guess.
And then how did you arrive at this stage that you're in now?
Right now, it's pretty much perseverance, hard work. I mean, I'm an indie artist, so I'm pretty much doing everything on my own. So just to stay and keep the music alive, I go to work, and after work I come back home and I make my music.
Okay. Yeah. And then Blackjack Mongo, how did that name come about?
So the name Blackjack Mongo started when I was in high school, when I started producing. So a cousin of mine was also into music at the time. His name is Tato, and I started producing for them. And he was like, yo man, you make very cold beats. So the name Moscow came from there because I chose the coldest city in the world, which was Moscow at the time. And Blackjack just came from me being a black man and I'm made of ether. So that became me, I'm a body of ether. So Blackjack, then Moscow just came about. So just creating a full character.
Nice. Can you tell us about the inspiration behind Adventures of Mongo and how it relates to the kind of lessons that you've learned through our own shared experiences?
Yeah. So the inspiration and theme behind it mostly it's looking at the moments that you go through in life, but not necessarily just focusing on that moment, but the person you come out as afterwards. What transformation did you have afterwards? Mind state, personal wise, whether you changed your body, did you go to the gym? Did you get fit? Did you have maybe become a much calmer person in every situation? So it's looking at how you have developed as a person after those situations instead of looking at that moment specifically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I suppose then that the theme also, lies around that.
Yeah.
The theme 100%. Of the music. I mean, what is it exactly?
So mostly it's about inspiring. So I'm talking about my own life, my tribulations. I'm talking about losing people. I'm talking about fighting my way through, for example, growing up as a young man, single mom, and your father comes now and then. So it's mostly trying to find yourself through life, but also getting to a point where you're a young boy and now you're a man and you have your own children. So it's trying to explain to people how I've progressed as a boy to a man and how my mind state is throughout all of those processes.
And what specific experiences influenced the creation of this EP? And would you say that it sort of changed your perspective on life in a way?
Yeah, mostly it's the birth of my children. It's me growing up to becoming a man, finding a job. It's pretty much also the friends that I've met. They also have a huge influence in the EP.
And how do you hope that your music will help listeners process, their inner being and their own experiences, and just to shape their positive outlook on life?
Firstly, it's them just being able to relate. Relation is one of the first steps to somebody actually being able to process their situations, because now they know they're not the only person that's going through whatever it is, and from there it's easier for them to listen to you, and it's actually easier for you to actually give advice at that point. But mostly the EP is all about inspiration. It's about telling people that no matter who you are, where you're from, I could be living in Soweto, you could be living in the East Rand, but we pretty much go through the same problems in our lives, so we're all the same.
Yeah. And any particular or specific track in the EP that you hope that it will convey the message that you want to convey?
Mostly it's things we go through. That's one of the songs that I think will definitely convey that message, as well as which is the other song?
But is that your favorite? Is that one that's close to your heart?
Yeah, I feel like Things We Go Through is very close to my heart because it also pays homage to an artist who we have lost, who is Magesh. There's a song that he did, so that's like, it's also paying homage to that, just to show like some influence that I've also had in my music, like that Kwaito influence. Yeah.
Can you talk to us about your creative writing process?
It pretty much starts in the studio mostly.
Yeah.
It depends whether I'm alone or with my friends who I co-work with, and from there it's compose the song.
Yeah.
Start with the beat. From the beat you get to the lyrics. Once you've got your lyrics down, that's when you actually start the recording process, which is then you start laying down your vocals, layering them down, making sure that your vocals, like, there's no discord, everything is just, then from there you move to arrangement. So the process is actually just from start to finish a very long process, but it's one I do enjoy. So
yeah. And how do you balance vulnerability and authenticity in your music while still maintaining that creativity and just being authentic in your music?
I think there's no real way to balance it. Especially when you're an artist, you always have to expose yourself. Like you have to be as vulnerable as possible so that people can actually relate much easier.
Right.
So I think for me, there's no real way to put a cap on it. But for me, it's just always being open and being as honest as possible.
Yeah. And any advice for those who who want to learn from their own experiences and how to approach life from a much more positive trajectory?
Firstly is learning how to accept what you're going through. That way it's easier for you to progress and actually be like, okay, now I need to find a solution from the space I am to the person I want to be, or pretty much my future. So that's I think that's just the first step. Always accepting where you are, understanding where you are, and finding a way of getting your next step out of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since we know that music is forever evolving, are you likely to evolve with the evolution of music, or are you fearful that it might, derail you from the mandate that you've set out for yourself?
I'm an artist, so I feel evolution is natural.
Yeah.
Change is the only constant thing in life. So
you just have to adapt.
Yeah, you just have to adapt to it. So whichever way music changes, it's always important that you more or less move towards that direction, but always leave a piece of yourself within there.
Indeed.
So I think that's also one thing that you'll find in my music. Like, there's just that distinct sound that you won't find anywhere else.
Yeah. How are you contactable?
People can find me on all social platforms, Instagram, Blackjack Moscow, Facebook, Blackjack Moscow, as well as Twitter, Blackjack Moscow. Yeah.
All the best, man. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for chatting to us. All right, that was rapper and producer Blackjack Moscow taking us through the process of creating his EP, Adventures of Mongo.